Hi there, guys. Make a video today. I want to talk about the Battle of Vicksburg in the Civil War and unconventional tactics. And this was actually, I think, one of the biggest turning points in the Civil War when Vicksburg in Mississippi was lost. And this enabled Sherman later to make his push towards the east and towards Atlanta, which would cut the supply lines off that fed the Army of Northern Virginia, which did all the fighting there on the front line. But really what I want to talk about is Grant's unorthodox tactic that caught Pemberton, who was the general or the commander there at the Vicksburg fort, by surprise. Well, Grant had been attacking Vicksburg, and Vicksburg essentially sits on a hill, and you've got the Mississippi River sitting directly to the west. So you'd have to cross the river to attack Vicksburg there, which makes it impossible to be, because artillery batteries would just annihilate your men as they tried to cross there. To the north are a series of bluffs, which make the lines of advance only possible from certain areas. Again, they could be repelled by the artillery batteries at Vicksburg. And to the east, you had a town called Jackson, and it was firmly in the hands of the Confederates, and it had the rail lines that supplied Vicksburg and you know, kept everything moving into Vicksburg. So that was their supply line and line of communication. So Grant had attempted many attacks from the north, many conventional attacks, because those attacks still enabled him to have a line of resupply and communication. At that point, all conventional wisdom says any army needs to have a line of communication and a line of resupply. Well, Grant decided to float several Union transport ships down the Mississippi River in the dead of night. And the Vicksburg batteries opened up on them, of course, as they brought the flotilla about 30 miles south of Vicksburg, along that bend in the Mississippi River. But Grant was able to sneak enough of this flotilla by after time to have enough transport ships to get his men across the river from the western bank of the Mississippi to the eastern bank of the Mississippi, so he could approach Vicksburg from the south. And this is exactly what Pemberton thought he was going to do. He thought all armies need to be resupplied, so if he even gets to the south of us, it doesn't matter, because we can nail him with the artillery batteries, and he won't be able to make an approach, a direct approach from the south. So his main concern was, well, he was supremely confident that Grant wouldn't be able to make any have any success. But unconventionally, Grant didn't leave himself a line of resupply. He marched on Jackson without any way of being resupplied across the river, which essentially made it so, you know, an army fights on its stomach, but what he ended up doing was plundering the rich farmlands around that area. And once they took Jackson, it cut off the supply line to Vicksburg, and with the rail line severed into Vicksburg, Pemberton, the Union Army, was then quickly able to besiege the city, and Pemberton was forced to surrender. And once that fort was lost on the Mississippi River, all the men and material that could be floated along the Mississippi River up to Vicksburg and transported to the rail lines east and then north to feed the Army of Northern Virginia, once that was lost, pretty much it was the South was doomed in their military campaign, because the most important thing I think to think about tactics and unconventional tactics is you don't ever really strike your enemy. If your enemy is too strong to strike them head on or too well fortified to take him, you have to find the weak points. And sometimes that requires unconventional tactics, and sometimes it requires a big gamble and a big risk. Now, had Grant failed to take Jackson and been repelled by the Confederate forces there, his entire army would have been left with no line of retreat. He'd have been forced against the Mississippi River, and his army would have been absolutely annihilated. And this is what Pemberton thought. And he thought it would actually be a good thing for Grant to try and cross there, because if he was pushed back, Grant's entire army would have been annihilated. So, I guess with great risk comes great reward, and fortune favors the bold, and this is one example of that. So, quick video. Catch you guys later.